Hello everyone, my name is Lorthorn and welcome to this video about the Minecraft mod Pyromancy. So, Pyromancy. What is Pyromancy? Well, we know that mancy is the art of telling the future, and mancers are the people that do the mancy, so they tell the future through their mancy. A necromancer talks to the dead to learn who's going to win the Super Bowl. A geomancer uses rocks to find out when they're going to next get their rocks off. And a strolomancer, being the silliest of all the mancers, is still more respectable than an astrologer. So, with that laid out, the general gist of what mancers are, then you can presume that a pyromancer is someone that uses fire to look into the future. And so pyromancy is the art of lighting people on fire and then telling them that they're going to burn to death. And that's basically what this mod is, but with a lot more steps in between everything. So come walk with me and we'll take a look at those steps, shall we? To start off with, we'll go into the desert to find a giant tree. It's got glowing leaves, it's got logs made of pyrowood, collect some of that pyrowood, and that's as good a place as any to start with. Now, this mod's a little bit of a strange one. There's no actual guidebook. If you go to the Curse 4 page, it sort of has a guide of various different things you can do. And if you go into advancements, the Pyromancer advancement page kind of guides you through it, but it's actually, I've found, very poorly, or not poorly, just not helpfully put together. So, start off Pyromancy by collecting the pyrowood log. That'll activate the advancement for it, and so, obtain some pyrowood. First step of the whole thing, then it says visit a flaming grove, collect some heavy metal, get some leather stuff, get some brimstone, and go to a rotten biome. All good steps to start with, and you can follow that, but they really don't actually put you anywhere or bring you along for the ride of what the mod truly is, which is kind of unfortunate because it's a very cool mod, and it's very hard to find direction in the mod within the game. You can find the direction, like I said, from the outside pages, and you can find direction here, but the mod itself doesn't really promote itself all that well or all that much. Altogether, the mod feels like it's very hard to start conceptually, and while that can be fine, a mod just existing in the background, so much of this mod is so obscure that it's very difficult to figure out what you're doing with it. But that's it. Let us figure out what we're doing with it in the form of this video. So, with this pyrowood logs, after that long rambling start that's probably had, I don't know, like 30 to 40% of people click off, we make the Pyromancer table. Pyromancer table being made with a gas tier, pyrowood slabs, and pyrowood logs. Slap that down and it does nothing, but it does look rather cool. What you need to do after that is make a blazing quill. It is made with expensive gas tiers, blaze powder, and a feather. After you get that quill, you can get a brick, and you can get some magma cream, you can get some even more blaze powder, you can get some glowstone dust, put the feather in the center, and that makes the blazing journal. And the blazing journal also does nothing, but when combined with the table and blazing powder put on the bottom there, it sucks up the blazing powder and still does nothing. However, if you then happen to find one of these enchanting books with this orange text, either by looting dungeons or trading with villagers, you can then combine the enchantment book with your blazing journal rather than combining it with an item. We combine Infernal Harvest with the journal. Now we have a blazing journal with Infernal Harvest contained within it. If we happen to have a hoe in hand and the blazing journal are offhand, when we make an attack with the hoe, it will use up some of the redstone charge within the journal, and it'll ignite everything on fire within an area. And so these orange enchantments, there's all different kinds of orange enchantments you can find throughout the world, adventuring, trading, looting chests, and talking to villagers, and all that stuff, I assume. All powerful and useful in their own way. I happen to think that the hoe one is the best of the lot. But these enchantments also exist for the sword, axe, shovel, shield, and mace, which is added by this mod. The shield one is pretty cool. It generates a wall of fire at the cost of a lot of blaze powder from the journal. The other ones are a bit strange. They require the targets to already be on fire. The sword one causes this sort of AoE attack. It's more of an attack at another location after you hit the target. The shovel stuns the target for what feels like maybe half a second and puts the fire out on them. And the axe, when it hits them, makes them spew little blobs of magma everywhere, which really quickly fade and apparently are good somehow. They light other targets on fire for a very short amount of time. I'm not a fan of the blazing ones. It's interesting conceptually, but executed weakly. The book does have many uses in the future though, thankfully, so there's more to it than that. Well, that's the start of your book and the start of those explorations. Now, on to the next big thing. Exploring Hell. So, there's 2 new biomes that have been added to the nether. We've got the Pyrowood, which, with shaders, is absolutely gorgeous. And even without shaders, still looks decent. It's got illumination effect applies, so everything in here is emitting light, which is cool. Leaves got a nice thing. It looks like kind of a permanent fall area to you. There's different plants like to explode when you're here. And there's a few new creatures that like to dwell in this place. I have found that their spawning is a little erratic, but what you're going to find in these places are these bugs called scorches, or scorch. They make spider noises. You will find pyrocorns, which are these adorable little leaf-headed fellows that just sort of bumble about down there. And you will find the treant, which are these badass, scary, flaming tree men, which live in this realm and protect it. Back to it with the shaders though, and if you do get this mod, I actually highly recommend engaging your shaders, because Pyrowood without shaders, and Pyrowood with the shaders, especially when the shaders decide to break. Pyrowood without shaders, and with the shaders on. I just think that the shaders really make this mod pop and stand out with the light emission of the pyro leaves and the light emission of all these plants. It just makes it so pretty in here, and the flowers, it's really, really nice looking. Alright, there's another biome for us to go see, and that is the Rotten Woods. This place is a little bit of a gnarly fungus wood. It's quite dark, very much like the contrast this place has, especially with the shaders, how dingy and unpleasant it is. This rotted wood is full of all different rotted plants that you can collect, and rotted trees and horrible ground, and these pigmen, the marauders, and their other friends who carry bombs on their back. Let's see if we can find one. There he is. The marauders and this pig sploders. They're absolutely insane. They'll attack players on sight. Very violent crowd. I definitely like the Pyrowood more. It's an interesting biome. It's got some effects, it's got some enemies, and it adds a different element of, well, nether to the whole thing. A different aspect of unpleasantness to a already unpleasant place. A sort of dingy, drab, rotting land. Got burning forests, you got warped hellscapes, you got those bloody flesh areas, valleys full of sand. It fits in. Wouldn't want to live here though, personally. So now with that all explored, what's next? Next is pig hunting, one of my favorite activities to do. Now, hoglins are usually just nightmarish creatures that shriek at you down the corridors, launch you in the air, make you fall into lava, and ruin hardcore save games. However, in this mod, they actually are useful because now they drop wonderful hoglin hide. Hoglin hide can be turned into clothing, like leather clothing, but different. Hoglin hide, made into a hat, made into a coat, made into pants, and made into boots, gives you the Marauder's gear. This stylish looking, if rather gross, bit of armor. It's got okay stats, better than leather armor, so that's a fair shake, and it has a special effect. So, its effect is it has a chance to reflect arrows. From what I can tell, it's about 1 in 3. It's good enough looking armor, has a fun effect, it's a different approach, different area. It's pretty good, I like it. And if it's a concern of yours, it also happens to integrate with wildfires, which is nice. Not all armor mods do, this one does. There are a few things more that Hoglin Hide can do. It can make the slingshot a very strange item, and it can be used for burritos as part of the wrapper. So slingshots are a ranged weapon. They have a bunch of different enchantments that go along with them, and they happen to have an enchantment as well that the Blazing Journal adds. Their ammo is a little bit different than most ammos. They shoot a variety of different shots. They can fire slime balls. They load like a crossbow, so you get them loaded, and then you left click to fire the projectile. And the slime ball applies a slow, and it also applies an absolutely absurd amount of knockback if you hit with it. Now, the enchantments I have on this apparently makes it have a chance to launch 2 projectiles, is a chance to deal more damage against bigger enemies, and resilience, it doesn't say in the description there, it's supposed to make it fire further. Now I don't know if it's some other mod I happen to have or some other thing going on, but none of these enchantments seem to actually apply to the slingshot, which is a great shame because it would be really nice to have more range on the slingshot. Another ammo it adds is pebbles, made by breaking down gravel. And pebbles really confused me at first because I got this dummy mod to basically check it out, and it actually does shoot multiple projectiles at gravel, and while they do apply knockback, they actually deal no damage. Now, Mega Green Flint. Mega Green lights stuff on fire, and Flint is just a default ammo that just deals flat out damage. Brimstone is something we can mine. I'll show you how to do that in a second. But when you hit a target with them, it puts that little blue sparkle on them. Blue sparkle by itself is useless. However, when a target is on fire, what it does is it makes them burn twice as fast. So they take more ticks of fire damage as long as they have the brimstone effect applied to them. So brimstone is found in the nether. It is found in the basalt biomes. And you can just mine the brimstone ore. It looks like this. You just scoop it up, pick it up, breaks down into brimstone. You get some yummy brimstone. You can apply that, use that, rub it on your face, fire in the slingshots, or put it into your burritos. Now the burrito is a bit of a complicated thing to make. It requires, as we said, this hogmen hide. That started the whole diatribe. A bit of gold, some pork, so it can't be that bad, right? It's got pork in it. It requires this fire plant here, and this pyromancer sprout, crimson fungus, we know about that, charcoal, we know about that, and brimstone, well, I just showed you. But what about this fire briar and the pyromancer sprouts? Well, those are not as straightforward as you'd think to get. It's actually rather peculiar. Now, the fire briar is very straightforward. You just break it. However, the fire moss, if you break it, you don't actually collect the item. So to get it, you need to use an actual silk touch. Now you'd think shears is what you'd do to get, but that doesn't work. It needs to be a silk touched axe. Now once you have the pyromancer and you have the fire briar, you can go ahead and make the burrito. We got the bell there. So let us enjoy burrito the last moment. So it applies incineration, blindness, wither, and a little bit of strength, but I think it's best to be avoided in the future. Time. The other food you can get is a lot more straightforward. You can get this fire lush salad, which is just various different greens or maybe reds, I suppose you could say, with a bowl picked from the pyrowood, and you can get the extra dry ration, which is a piece of coal with dried kelp, edible. Gives you wither and saturation. Not the best thing to eat. Firelush salad though, I think it just lights you on fire. So it could be worse. And that's it for the food, but not it for the explosive after effects of eating such things. Well, you can't really eat this, but you can make it, and that is the nitro powder. Kind of like upgraded TNT. Unfortunately, there's no nitro powder block, but if you combine gas tears with brimstone dust, a little bit of blaze powder and gunpowder, you can make the nitro powder. Now, the nitro powder is used to make bomb sacks. Now, bomb sacks are throwable explosives. They go a little bit of a boom. They don't actually break any blocks, but they do deal damage like any explosion, and they do ruin tutorials like any explosion. So best be careful with them if you're planning to make a tutorial video. These bundles of joy can be upgraded with more gunpowder added to make the scatter bomb. The scatter bomb, very similar to the original one, but it doesn't just deal explosion damage, it also blows up the terrain. So it's a bit like throwable TNT. It can also be upgraded into another alternate form using both brimstone and the pyro wood leaves and a little bit of magma cream to create the bomb stack, no name change, but has flaming glowing bits around it. Now the bomb stack, no name change, flaming glowing bit bomb isn't super useful in the nether, but it is very, very good at lighting everything on fire. Let's look at Mercury. Alright, Mercury is another thing you can find as added by this mod. The ore can be found in the netherrack wastes. Now, if you look at this here, what's happened here is I've used an infinity wand with a destruction core to destroy the landscape and look for Mercury ore. And, well, you don't actually find Mercury ore. What you do find is cinnabar ore. Now, this is what the cinnabar ore looks like. It is incredibly hard to see, and seems to be slightly rarer than other kinds of ores. Once mined, they'll give you cinnabar chunks, which can be smelted in a furnace to get mercury droplets. Now, why I wanted us to find drops of mercury is if you combine drops of mercury with Raffles Fazzle, which is found in that rotten biome, and the bomb stack, you can get a rotten bomb stack. And the rotten bomb stack doesn't apply any sort of explosion, but it does deal damage and applies rot to the target. Mercury has other uses, other dangerous and deadly uses, and rather practical uses. It can make a thermostat. Now the thermostat right now is telling us it's really hot right here. And we'll find that in the icy spikes, it's a little bit cooler. Something interesting to note about these cold biomes, which you should check out when you get the opportunity, is in this mod, there's a thunderstorm in the icy biome. Lightning will strike various parts of the ice and make these fellows spawn. These are copper golems. And if you happen to slay them, they will drop cooling cores. And that is an ingredient for the cooling coat. But before the cooling coat, there's some things we need to do. Now, one of the things we don't need to do, but we can do, is if we take blue ice and mercury and surround them together, we can make frozen mercury. And if we take the frozen mercury block, combine it with stone bricks, we can make this cool mercury bricks. Put that in your hat and smoke it, and you'll go insane. Now, that we have that established and we have a new background, if we take drops of mercury, gas tears, and magma cream and mix that all together, we get this mercury coating. The mercury coating is then applied to yourself and it gives the effect mercury coating. The effect mercury coating makes our attacks deal withering damage and apply withering. I've yet to see it deal the tick damage of the withering, but apparently that what it does. If you take that and combine two of them with the cooling elements, then we get the cooling coating. And it's a bit like Witcher. We apply the cooling coating to ourselves, and now our attacks are icy. Again, yet to really see any particles, but apparently it applies slow for like half a second. We can also apply a rot coating with the fungus and rotten stuff, and we can make a fiery coating. Unfortunately, the firing coating requires raw honey, and for the life of me, I've not figured out how to make it. I tried pretty hard, I looked it up, I looked around, couldn't find nothing on it, but it does apply the coolest effect, which is now your attacks will ignite enemies on fire. So take that, Mr. Husk, you're now burning. Pyromancy adds a new kind of weapon, and that's the mace. It adds the iron mace as a base, made with 2 sticks and 4 iron. It attacks slower than a sword, but deals a little bit more damage than a sword. And the other versions of it actually have different appearances, which are really cool. The golden mace is this golden scepter, which is quite pretty. The diamond mace sort of buffs out and gets all bigly. The netherite mace, again, has its own appearance, sort of heading back towards the initial mace, but with an extra spike on the side, as opposed to the bottom, as you can see there. The mace, when combined with the blazing journal, releases a stream of flame at your enemies. Now, there are a few more things you can do with Hoglen Hide, but it requires you to, at this point in the game, get netherite scrap. And netherite scrap, as we all know, is a little bit expensive to get, just a tiny bit. If you combine netherite scrap, hoglen hide, and a stick of gold, you can get the hog whip. This is a very fun weapon. It pulls targets towards you. Damage also to all targets in a row. It will hit all of them and pull all of them. It also has enchantments that make it have longer range when whipping and sends targets flying way farther than it did before. That's the hog whip. The hog whip has no special pyro book enchantment that I have noticed. It's still pretty good on its own. The next item requiring netherite that we're going to make is the fire link, and I love this item. It is so cool. It's made with the pyrowood log, some nitros powder, netherite, and a blaze rod. And what this does kind of lets you Dark Souls. So if you have a campfire outside in the upper world dimension and you right click on the campfire, it sparks everywhere and it puts the sword onto cooldown. This is also just a sword that attacks fairly fast and deals a high amount of damage, making it a decent weapon by itself. But once that cools down some, we'll just go for a little walk here. We can then hold shift and right click, and it'll teleport us back on top of the campfire. That will burn your feet a little bit, but it gets you back home. It's a teleport back home, and it's very powerful. It also has an additional effect that if you swing at arrows that are coming at you, it incinerates those arrows and protects you from range attacks, which is a really neat extra effect. Alright, so something else a little bit strange and a little bit different than the weapons you can make is the hog trap. It's a gets away to hunt pigs. It requires mercury, nether quartz, and iron ingots, and it's kind of this bear trap. You walk on it and it goes bow. It makes you blind, withers you, weakens you, mining fatigue, slowness. It is not a good time. Next we have quills. Quills go into your Infernal Journal and apply effects and modifiers to it. First is the Membrance Quill. Need Blackstone, Phantom Membrance, Feathers, and Diamond. Quill. The Membrance Quill. Fire deals more damage around the Blazing Journal with this quill during the night. Plus 10 blaze costs during the daytime or when not in Overworld. So, to combine it with the book, you put the book in, you put it in, it gets moved to the out. You actually get the Blaze Quill back. How about that? And now your Blazing Journal has the Membrance Quill on it instead. There's another kind of quill you can make, which is the Fungus Quill. The Fungus Quill is made with shroom lights, nether wart, blaze powder, magma cream, and a feather. It applies spores when you attack an enemy with the enchanted sword. That seems to be about it. You can also get a quill by trading with a trader, and it makes it so you flash hunger whenever you use your journal to make it attack. It's only tradable, and then there are two other quills which I couldn't figure out how to craft. One of them summons hellish roots, which are really buggy and weird, and the other one makes artifacts cheaper. Right. So, at this point, you've done basically everything in the mod besides dealing with the extra boss it adds and the extra event it adds. Now, I think both boss and event are interesting, but both are deeply flawed at the same time. We'll deal with the boss first. So, in the desert, these big old trees. Lore of the game, lore of the mod anyways, is these are actually treants that were imprisoned. So these are like super treants that are imprisoned in the above world who are trying to defend Pyrowood's blow from ancient pigmen. The ancient pigmen imprison them in here and now they're trapped. If we go into the Warpwood and we go about and we find this incredibly rare plant, it will drop the fractal cucumber. You can eat it. I wouldn't recommend doing that because its true purpose is you take it to a desert, take it to one of these big trees, according to the instructions of the mod, and you click on the sand, and it summons this guy, and he jumps out, boom, he's here. And he's slow, but he lights the ground on fire, he jumps around on you, he's big and scary, he hits quite hard, triggers explosions, summons these little floating heads that fly about and then explode again, tears up the grounds. He's just like this giant, impossible nightmare to fight. So you think. but he's actually not that hard to defeat, and also just a weird lore detail. Well, you can put him anywhere in the desert, and he'll summon him. Flaw number 1. I mean, that might be really hard to program. Flaw number 2, though, the bigger flaw, the more important thing, his detection range is garbage. And so if you have a bow and you stand away from him, this one's dealing a little bit more damage because it has harming attached to the arrows. Now you stand a little bit of a distance away from him, you can just shoot him with a bow and you don't really get the fight. And he's incredibly easy to beat. This was done with no mods that change him. I tested this in a only pyromancy thing. And yeah, he's dead, blammo, and he drops his goodies for you. He gives you books with ashen pages, he gives you broken evil blades, and he gives us molten pyrowood, which are the things we want to collect from him. So, what do we do with our molten pyrowood early in the morning? We can make Court of Embers. Court of Embers is made with molten pyrowood, nitro powder, and gold. Have that, and you have your book. This is when the real pyromancy begins, because it lets you shoot fire tornadoes. Look at that! And this is where the artifact cooldown feather actually comes into play if you happen to have it, because this is one of the artifacts. So it lights things on fire, the skeletons are always on fire. But also, it sucks them together, makes them burn. And blammo. I think that's pretty fun. And wow, it even lights things on fire that are underwater. That's pretty cool. Another thing to be made is the Lantern of Blazing Souls. The Lantern of Blazing Souls is made with molten pyrowood, nitro powder, and a soul lantern, and it summons these little guys. And they explode. And light stuff on fire when they explode. Next, costing all the stuff you see before you is Call of Flames, and it's a flamethrower that shoots a stream of fire at relatively low cooldown, lights a bunch of targets on fire, doesn't actually burn the ground, got the low cooldown, and yeah, decent range stream of fire. And the other thing that our friends dropped, the broken evil blade, if combined in a smithing table with the fire link, I believe you just have to do that, will create flaming flamin cling. And oh man, I love this weapon so much. I think this is one of my favorite weapons I have ever seen in Minecraft. This is actually up there in the top items to add to Minecraft. Right. So, when you hit things, you jump. Then when you land, it launches them up the air, deals explosion damage, and then they take fall damage. And so you can actually kind of perpetually keep yourself up in the air, bouncing on them. Come down, boom. And it can do something else, which is if you right click with it, it turns into its alternate mode. And this is a straight mode, and that shoots out a straight little beam of fire, dealing massive AoE damage to our targets. Now, the other lame use of the fire link is instead of making this sword with the broken evil sword, you can take a netherite mace, which is already quite expensive, and you can take the broken sword, netherite 8.2 damage, 1.2 seconds, and you can combine them together into Snitchelizer, which applies incineration to enemies, which is like burning but worse. Really, actually incredible knockback and some decent damage. So it's a strong weapon, don't get me wrong. And it looks cool. I like its look. But I think the fire link is just so much cooler, in my opinion. Well, yeah, good item. Good, solid item. Next, you have to kill the Wither. Once you've killed the Wither, he will drop his typical Wither Star, which you are going to want. That's important. But he'll also drop the Core Shard. So, this is weird. This is something I didn't know about Minecraft. So in Minecraft Bedrock Edition, if you build one of these things here and you put a battery in it, it's some sort of like nether generator apparently. Never heard of that, but for those of you that didn't know, nether generator, there. It's in the other version of Minecraft, and it like summons these giant spires that look kind of cool actually. I'm don't know why it's not in base game, but it's not, and so that's just the way it is. But our concern is we still want to make this thing, and we're going to put a beacon in it. And once we have our beacon in it, we take the core shard, and we put that in, and that summons the invasion of the Pigman Legion. And these guys aren't turning into zombies because they have drinking that beer. And so we have a Pigman chief spawn here. He's got netherite armor and a mace. We've got this Pigman breaker spawning. We've got all sorts of cool pigmen showing up and gibbling, gabbling, and squealing about. And we basically have to clear out the invasion or activate the shard again and stop it by doing that. So how to defeat the invasion is it's like any invasion such as the raid, you simply eliminate the targets with your weapons. Although they are very tough, so it's going to take a bit to skip through them all. And while you're getting through them, you also collect netherite shards, which was just dropped on the ground there. And so this is the main reason you want to summon the invasion, is to get these netherite shards. Conceptually, this is very cool. I very much like it. It's its own fun event. It's probably a very hard fight if you're not under the effect of Strength 100 and Regen 100. But you can slowly eliminate them. There they are, the wizards. Cool design, little golden mask. Throws out fireballs, summons blazes. No, it's very, very well thought out in the visual appearance. But once you have them all dealt with, you don't get anything. Like, the only reason to summon them is for the netherite shards. There's no reward beyond that. And I find that a little bit anticlimactic. I feel like you should get something bigger from that as well, besides the shards. Now, the shards are nice and they're useful, but there should be some bigger reward or some such thing. And it just doesn't feel like it's there for me. And, well, that's that, basically. But these shards are what we're after. And these shards are important for making the final bits of this mod. We've done most of it, but there's just a little bit left, and that's the shards. So if you have a netherite helmet, and you combine it with a netherite shard, so if you can get this netherite mask, there we go, you can see I've got the scary helmet on. So we can make a netherite helmet, and we can also use a shard with pyro wood and a whole bunch of stuff to instead make the raging mask, and that makes us look like one of those tree fellows, and that's pretty cool. And then we can again use netherite shards and those burning cores and some of that pig leather. And we can make the Pyromancer's chest piece. Got that sort of wooden chest piece. Again, same thing, pyro wood, a little belt buckle of our netherite shard pants here. So we get Pyromancer pants. And finally, very simple to make, is the Pyromancer boots. You actually don't even need the shards for the Pyromancer boots. And that makes you a complete set. Now the complete set has a whole boatload of effects that it doesn't actually say on the armor. However, it does say on the Curse 4 page what this armor does for Pyromancer. So we're just going to read that off for you. So the Pyromancer armor reduces the cost of artifacts by 1 to activate, has a chance not to consume a bomb stack when you throw it, weapons enchant with fire aspect apply brimstone. When you are damaged while having low health, there's a chance of summoning friendly, fiery, blazing souls. So if you take the Raging Mask and that Netherite Mask and even more of this Molten Pyrowood, it's actually pretty easy to get as long as you can find those cucumbers. You can put that all together and you can get the Helmet of the Hell-Blazing Monarch. And so you get this chaotic looking crown. And this is basically all the Hell-Blazing gear. All of it's pretty cool. So you combine your book, your Blazing Journal, with a Pyromancer armor and a netherite chest piece, and that gives you the chest piece of the Blazing Monarch. And the chest piece can also be charged. So it can hold charge as well as your book, so it's the extra little charge holder for the use of your artifacts. Next is the pants, again the same story. You need the Pyromancer pants, you need the netherite leggings, and that gives you the Hell-Blazing Monarch pants. And then finally, last but not least, yada yada, is the shoes. Again, the same story. Each one requires 2 in a different location, netherite armor and the base armor. And that gives you the full set of Lord of Cinders for the Flaming Monarch gear. And the armor of the Hell-Blazing Monarch has all the same effects, but also gives you resistance to brimstone, incineration, and burning. So if you're playing with fire, you still take fire damage, but you don't catch fire. That's, I think, a pretty good thing to have. And there's a whole bunch of enchantments for all the items at the end there, but frankly, I'll leave you to explore those for yourself. Because where's the fun in me telling you everything for free? You should explore the mod yourself a little. So we'll just eliminate there. And that's Pyromancy. And so that was Pyromancy. My closing thoughts on the mod is it's very cool. It's very close to being a Vanilla Plus mod as well, and I happen to love Vanilla Plus mods. The textures, the appearance, the way things work, they feel like they could almost fit into Vanilla Minecraft. They're just one step adjacent. It's like Vanilla Plus Plus, maybe. At times the mod is very confusing to figure out, as I expressed early in the beginning. The advancements don't tell you everything, and that can be fine. You can work with that. And the guides on the website are pretty good and cover most of the information, but a bit of it here and there is obscure and lost, and you really have to work for a while to struggle to figure it out. But it is doable, unlike some mods I've come across where you literally have to go to the person's Discord and ask them, how on earth do I do this? To note, this mod does require Terra Blender to work. It will scream at you at the start to do that, so just don't forget that. Yeah, no, very cool mod, looks very pretty. Fiddly here and there, a few things feel a little stiff, but it flows mostly right. It's got that lovely vanilla feel, as I said earlier. Vanilla extra, anyways. Maybe synthetic vanilla. Yeah, great mod though. Loved it. Go check it out for yourself. You can add it to your pack. It's a good little bit of magic. It's not the most overpowered, so if you're going to use it in a larger mod pack, make sure to have everything be slightly weaker so it doesn't get outshined. Besides that though, it's solid, decent time, fun to play with, looks very pretty, very aesthetically pleasing, things fit in. Only the Scorched is a little off for me. I don't think it fits into Minecraft personally, but it's alright. It's just, it doesn't quite click for me. But all in all, it's a good mod. Alright, hope you found this entertaining, useful, or enlightening, whichever one of those you needed. And until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.